I'd love a self-driving car. Anyway, joining us is Alpesh Patel, CEO of Prifinium Partners. We will come to cars in a moment. But first of all, Ukraine. We start, of course, with Ukraine. Yes. And we've had a statement, actually, from Japan saying there has been a phone call between the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and President Obama. Not surprising, Japan lending its support again to any measures that the Americans might take. But Russia, China, of course, again, not a new partnership there.
No, what's important about this story is that we actually haven't heard much from China on this, and of course, a permanent member of the UN Security Council. It's a great little piece in the Japan Times because they rightly point out that Russia and China have one common interest, which is this fear of encirclement by the West. And I think the West really hasn't understood what Russia's concerns are, which are identified in this newspaper as this notion that Russia has fears of privileged interests, which includes the Crimea because of the Black Sea port, and quite frankly, EU and NATO have disregarded this. Now, there is, I think, a simple solution to Crimea. Has been the sort of the Afghanistan of Europe since the Crimean War in the 1850s. It's been dragging in the great powers into conflict. The solution, and I think this is what President Putin probably wants, is Crimea goes to Russia with its Black Sea port guaranteed, because it's only on lease for about another 30, 40 years, and he cannot afford, no Russian Prime Minister President's ever going to let that go.
Exactly. No one's going to let Sevastopol go, are they?
In return, the West asked for Ukraine join the EU and subsequently NATO. And I think that's where it's going to end.
Because President Putin in a press conference this week kept saying specifically, he was not looking to annex Crimea, but obviously that split, for many people, it does seem an obvious solution, and yet the population within that region is not just geographically split quite so simply.
No, they're ethnic Russians. They're misplaced. They want to be in and part of the Russian Federation, as the referendum, which is due imminently, will show that they want to be in that direction. And Russia's not going to let it go. They've got influence anyway, because they'll install puppet governments.
The point is that the Russian Navy has used Sevastopol for many, many years. And
exactly.
It is key to their operations.
And it cannot let go.
If it was a Western government, you wouldn't expect them to lose it, would you?
No, exactly. And equally, give Europe, Ukraine into the EU and into NATO. I just came back from Riga, and if you think about Latvia, Lithuania, those were former Soviet satellites, and they're in NATO. So there is a price to pay for Russia, but I think it's probably going to be a fair deal.
The method, though, is not one that anyone is going to, approve
not yet.
Of. But from the financial point of view, how much does this worry investors, players?
The funny thing is the world stock markets are all-time highs. I have to say I'm somewhat surprised, because you would think we're going to be more spooked when Russia and the US have gone eyeball to eyeball, but not so.
There was a big wobble at the beginning of the week, wasn't there?
There was indeed, and also the sort of element that's missed out of this article is it talks about how China is potentially more important to this debacle than the United States, because in terms of trade. But what it doesn't really talk about explicitly is the relationship with Europe, the fact that America has never been a big trading partner with Russia, not in recent times, and yet Europe is a massive trading partner, hence the reason it's no great surprise that the United States actually in economic terms isn't such a big player in this.
I just think everybody's forgotten their history, and they're forgetting how the Crimean War started and ended. And the fact of the matter is the Russian interests will be fought for in this region, and Crimea is a small price to pay for Europe in exchange for getting Ukraine into the EU.
The former leader of Georgia, there, was warning that, which parts of the Baltics, etc., will Russia then be tempted to annex next, given Russia's history in Georgia. But anyway, we must move on. There is lots more on the website for those who want to remind themselves of the history of Crimea. Bitcoin. Now, this seems to be making the newspapers all around the world. It's in the FT here in London, but I've seen it in the Indian papers as well today. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I tell you what I like about this story about Bitcoin. Of course, it's this cryptocurrency which is trading in the billions and avoids the problems of regular currency, exchange fees, and some say it avoids issues of taxation and so on. But the inventor that they've tracked down is a 64-year-old. And the reason I like this is it's not yet another blooming 17-year-old who's going to get given 50 billion from Google or Yahoo or whatever. There is hope for those of us who are closer to 64 than we are to 21. So I think that's an important one, because of course it's a technology story, and it shows the inclusiveness of technology. Anyway, they've hunted this person down, as the FT notes, in Los Angeles, and he doesn't really want much to do with it.
Although he's a potentially extremely wealthy man.
Yeah, well, he's clearly old school, because he doesn't want anything to do with the press. He doesn't, he was chased down the streets apparently to call the police. He said, well, actually, I've got very little to do. I just want a quiet life. And apparently was a train enthusiast, and that's why he came about to invent this, because he was just fed up with the currency exchanges.
But this is the end of a long mystery, isn't it? Because the hunt for the founder of Bitcoin has been going on for a long time, and they assumed it was a pseudonym.
Yeah, exactly. They thought, no, surely he can't have a name as Satoshi Nakamoto. That is his name.
That is his real name.
It is a well-known name around the world. Now, to India, I've just been there on holiday, and India's massively in election mode. The Gulf News is running a story about Indian students who were expelled from university and facing sedition charges initially, although I think those have been withdrawn now, for cheering the Pakistan team in a cricket match. Now, obviously, the issue of India-Pakistan on Kashmir is extremely contentious.
Yes, those familiar with British politics will probably remember Norman Tebbit and his cricket test about where your loyalties lie when you're from a different ethnic group in another country. I've actually just come back from Kashmir myself, and we weren't on holiday together, I should say, but I've come back from Kashmir.
I was in South India.
And I should say why this is an important story, because it's very much in parallel to the Ukrainian problem. You've got people from a different ethnic group or different set of loyalties embedded into a bigger country, and you can imagine the anger it brings. It's the equivalent of being Japanese and supporting China, or being English and supporting the Scots, or God forbid the Germans, and so on and so forth. But sedition, that'd be ironic if they were charged with sedition.
I think the Indian papers are saying it's been withdrawn, according to an official.
Because it was the British who used to charge the Indians with sedition, or being unpatriotic, or treachery, call it what you will. Treason, effectively, is the other word for it. But it highlights, given that both countries, India and Pakistan, are nuclear powers, highlights the parallel that we've got with Ukraine, with two nuclear powers going face to face. And whilst the world's looking that way, we mustn't forget just how dangerous other parts of the world are in terms of...
Well, India's about to go to the polls. It is a democracy, and freedom of speech is prized, which is, something that many people feel very strongly about, regardless of who you're supporting it.
Absolutely.
The International New York Times, Pope Francis, he's getting everyone into a Twitter frenzy, but he's not actually up in numbers. Bums on seats in Mass, is he?
I think this is a really important story. It's actually the front page of the International New York Times. This Francis effect that people talk about, the popularity of this Pope off the scales compared to popes for a very long time, which is a very good thing, but it's not translating, as you say, into people going to Mass as one measure of religiousness. However, what is interesting is, as you say, the tweets are up, and maybe we ought to look at the way in which we define what it means to be religious. Maybe we ought to include measures not just of how often you go to church or how often you read the Bible or whichever holy book you follow, but actually how often you check your tweet from your religious leader.
We'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid, because we're out of time. Alice and I will answer tweets later. See you soon. Thanks for joining us.